So good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's four-part learning series on Indigenous knowledge, relationship to land, language, and wellness. Kwe, Anin, Bojo, Tammy, Nadishnakas, Kitigan Zibi, Nanonjaba, Nordbay, and Dayan, Makwa Dodam. Hi, everyone. My name is Tammy Kayi Dokis. I am from Kitigan Zibi, Anishinaabe, and North Bay is where I'm living now, and I'm of the Bear Clan. So I am the coordinator of the Kikandaso and Mokassin Indigenous STEAM program here at the First Peoples Center at Kenora College in North Bay, Ontario. And I also want to introduce my coworker, Dakota Heon, who is the Indigenous STEAM lead, I believe, right? Your position is multi-position, so you can introduce yourself, Dakota.
Yeah, so thank you, Tammy. Before I begin, so Ani, Wache, Sego, Wabe Jauja, Kwankwe, Nipki, Dishnkas, Dawa, Donjaba, Beezing, Donda, Nishnabe, Mishkigo, Honishone, and Dao, Makodonda, Maho. So hello, everyone. My name is Dakota Heon, or my English name is Dakota Heon. My spirit name is Wabe Jauja, Kwankwe, Nimki, which roughly translates to Blue Thundercloud. I was born and raised in Ottawa, currently living in North Bay. I am Ojibwe, Mohawk, and Cree. So there's a whole mix there. There's a lot happening inside of here. There's a whole lot. So my friends always joke around calling me a resmut, just a mix. So yeah, and then I'm also from the Bear Clan as well as Tammy. So as Tammy said, I work in the First People Center in our Kikandaso and Mokassin Indigenous STEAM program. And so Kikandaso and Mokassin is like knowledge stemming forth from like the land. And so that's primarily what we do. Our work is revolved around Indigenous STEAM, so land-based experiential learning education. STEAM being science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And as Tammy said, my title is Indigenous STEAM Lead, although as she alluded to as well, it seems to change every day, every minute, every hour. But that's okay, that's just the nature of our work. My role primarily is to support Tammy in particular programs such as this four-part learning series, our in-school program as well, where we actually go into high schools and work with educators, teachers, as well as students. And then for myself, though, I primarily oversee our Indigenous coding workshops in which we facilitate in school. And then kind of the big part that I do is our Indigenous mentorship program. And so for myself, I'm currently developing and running this mentorship program. I had two students working with me from a local high school here in North Bay for the past 6 months. And so those opportunities basically include, training, understanding what Indigenous STEAM is, providing, learning opportunities to learn about their culture, facilitation opportunities, curriculum development, as well as curriculum links, just all of these different pieces. Essentially, we hire high school students to work for us. We're giving them free training. We're giving them kind of a pathway into these fields and into hopefully post-secondary as well. And so that's primarily the work that I do. I'll leave my email in the chat if folks want to reach out. We can talk a bit more about that program, where we're just currently waiting for some funding, and we'll be hiring more students to work with us. So I'll do that. If you want to meet, we can talk through email. If you want to meet over Zoom, on a phone, if you want to send smoke signals, we can do that too, whatever works best for you. But yeah, so that's my spiel for now. And I will hand it off. Do we want to introduce Cody as well?
I would say absolutely. Cody is,
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll hand it off to Cody, who's one of our Indigenous STEAM instructors as well. So Cody, if you want to just introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do, it'd be great.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Wache, Kwekwe. My name is Cody Mackenzie Sackney. I'm from Temiskaming First Nation, from the Bear Clan. I'm also a part of the STEAM team. My role is cultural health and wellness lead. So my role, particularly focus on the wellness pieces, cultural aspects, and yeah, just been a part of the team probably for about close to 2 years now. My position kind of changed around a little bit. Also like Dakota's, it kind of went here and there and working on a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But yeah, glad to be a part of the team. And I just want to say took part in one of Brian's workshops in Pikwakanagan, Ontario, close by Ottawa. I think it was back in the fall, and he did the workshop on a language, and it was really, really interesting. I never had it explained to me like that, and all the things that how he broke it down and everything. It's just like it blew my mind. And, I'm really glad he's here with us tonight. It's pretty educational, pretty informative. So, yeah, I'll have to say, enjoy.
You got Cody.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody.
Big wedge, Cody. For those of you just joining us now, welcome. I see your number went up there a little bit. Good. So today we invite Brian Outinen, who will be our guest speaker this evening. He'll be presenting on the topic of language and landscape symbolism. Brian Outinen is an Ojibwe from Serpent River First Nation. He is a part-time professor at Algoma University, and he teaches Anishinaabe philosophy and cultural language origins. He authors a personal blog, Ancient Ojibwe Teachings, and I think you could probably share that in the chat box later, maybe the link for it. And Brian also inspires to help teach language through symbolism and language breakdown. He is also translated for federal debate on live television from English to Ojibwe, and also for the Prime Minister. So let's welcome Brian here this evening. And you're good to go, Brian.
Ani bojo watje, babaje na do Indigenous, nanoshkens na do dem, ganabajing na do jaba. Hummingbird clan is my family clan. My Ojibwe name is Babaje, which means wise father. And as stated by Tammy, I come from the Serpent River Reserve. We call it Ganabajing, or you can call it Gitchagana Big Zibi, which is the big Serpent River, right, in the storyline. And there's a lot of stories that we can do. And getting to the meat and potatoes of why we're here today is we're talking about linguistic relativity and how each word actually formulates. I know there's a lot of people from different places, whether they're Cree, Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, or Algonquin. We all come from, or even Mi'kmaq, we all come from this language family. So I'm going to start with a shared screen. And do the whiteboard here. I think everybody can see that with clarity, right? Okay. What is in a word? Let's begin with the most basic of words, okay? So we'd all identify ourselves as Anishinaabe, right? You can spell it I-N-A or A-N-A-A-B. This translates to singular person, right? This is really what you're saying. But what is Anishinaabe person? How do we even come to that understanding, to that world conception, okay? So linguistic relativity, Anish, translates to what or how, right? The next part that's hidden inside this word is nish, which is also part, just like niche. You know it as the number 2 into 2. And they also have the word shin inside of it, which means good way. Look how many parts are in one word. What most people don't realize, what really describes this person? What is and how do we conceptualize this in our creation story of Anishinaabe? Naabe means generally a male being or a being. So being singular, okay? And that's why when we say when we talk about a young buck as in the animal, or we gesture in the language to somebody that they're looking handsome, we call them a yabe, okay? So if you wanted to say, hey, you look like a handsome young buck, you call him a yabe, from the word nabe. So the term Anishinaabe means person singular versus Anishinaabe plural. These are all the conceptions that are hidden inside of it, but there's also other hidden parts within that part. Nisaing, you know, if you're not familiar with this one, Nisi, the N-I-S-S part by itself alone means down. So ing, the ing suffix just means near or by or from, okay? So when you're speaking the language and you say nisaing, I'm going down. So when you say the term Anishinaabe, I'm Anishinaabe, you're actually saying how you split into two and turning down a direction in a good way as a being. So you separated from above. And that's what the word description Anishinaabe conceptualize. You have this many parts inside of one word. Because in the language, as language speakers, you say this word, but really as a translator, you're translating all these formulated compound words within a word within a word. And that's how systematically scientific our language is. It tells you the information about ups, downs, left, right, and near. And if I wanted to pluralize it, of course, right, Anishinaabe, right, you can spell it with a K, or you can spell it with a G. That's entirely up to you. But that makes it people, right? So Anishinaabe, this is, now we're all taught to learn, because a Jesuit priest back in the day, animate, inanimate. We look at all our dictionaries, and our dictionaries tell us this is animate. But when we're actually talking about animacy, animacy actually refers to consciousness. It's a very confused topic that people are learning to just understand now. I try not to use that terminology, animate, inanimate, because the functionality doesn't really apply. To language speakers, using the G and the K is the same sound, really g, k, it has to do with time. It's a time stamp. I like to call it a time stamp. So for example, a tree, mitig, as you may even have M-I-T-I-G, M-T-I-G, mitik, or as a basis is a tree singular, right? So a tree singular, mitig. Now, in conversational Ojibwe, and this is what I mean by time, let's not say animate, inanimate. Let's talk about, does it have continuance, or is it done growing or done changing form, okay? So if I pluralize this term, you can spell it as mitiguk, walk, like that. Really, it's a gesture on your own. You can have it as M-I. Spelling is not the most important thing here. It's more about the pronunciation, right? So this version here is saying trees, but it is in a form of growth, present and future, okay? Future tense, okay? So you're saying that these trees, there's more than one, and these trees have the capacity to grow ongoing. They continue to self-replicate. But if these trees, and I'm speaking to you in the language, and I'm trying to explain to you that just by altering one letter in the language, and I'm just saying to you, without even using a prefix for the tense of past, present, and future, all I have to do is say metigun. Metigun is the exact same translation, trees, past tense. In a story, in a storyline, instantly you know that it's something that has already happened, because they're both pluralizers. The difference is metigun is that tree can no longer self-replicate. And the K or the G sound is related to like ga and ke. It's like the earth, right? Because it's self-replicating. Like you say anishmanik, nik, usually these suffixes means that there's many or much that it can replicate through the earth. Where something that has already experienced its growth or has finalized its experience, our language has these time markers, which in the books will call inanimate, but really it is state of time that is in the past or in stories. And in addition to that, understanding our language conception is that although we have a lot of, it says in our dictionary, nouns, our word is a verb-based language. So Anishinaabe, as you can see, it means person, but it has all these verbal characteristics that make that person, right? It's the same thing with the root word for trees. As mitin. Mitin means canopy, right? So if you have a canopy and your trees represent a canopy over your head, it's called a mitin, which is just the covering. So any questions on that? I know it's you know, it's maybe new for some or not new for others, you know, because there's a lot in one word, right? You know, just by saying you're Anishinaabe, what is a person? A person who ascended and a good way to be here, right? in that form. Because if I wanted to say, for example, how do I know nabe is a form of man versus saying or being, instead of saying nene, right? I would say that, you know, in Ojibwe or Cree, which is still on the same basis, there's a place called Misanabe. Misanabe means big man, right? That's Misa is an older way of saying big versus Mitche, big man. And if I wanted to say mermaid, Nibi, Nabe. That's a mermaid. It's neither male or no female. It's a water, or a bracket. The thinking behind the language is it's a water being, is really what you're saying. A water being. Nibi Nabe. And you see how the compound of the language works in a verbal description as to, and there's different descriptions that can give you indicators from one area to the next. So it doesn't matter if you use a B or P sound, nipe, nebe. The B and P are interchangeable, the G's and K's, because it's a pronunciation from your throat, right? And the only thing is, like, I'm trying to stress to people, I mean, we do have books that say animate, inanimate. That just denotes consciousness, right? And in our culture, consciousness and our way, you know, the Manitou, as you would say, is not just the spirit. It has everything to do with water, because consciousness is the existence of life, right? And that's why when you say the word life, you say bimad. Mod means life, living, singular, right? And you're living that life. Be is in there, like the water. Anytime you're talking about nepe, nebe, bish, you're talking about the water, that existence of life that exists all around us. This suffix mod is here. Ma means here, and the D denotes to everybody. Because if I wanted, you're not familiar with the language, these suffix endings are very powerful, right? So if I wanted to speak Anishinaabe, Mo, right? Anishinaabe, Mo Win, to speak the Ojibwe language, right? Anishinaabe. But if I wanted to change that to say, let's all speak, without saying the word let's, it's not like English, Moda, right? Anishinaabe, Moda, the da, just like Bimad, denotes everyone. So everyone is participating, let's say, as a speaker. So it translates, let's all speak Anishinaabe, but really it's everyone is participating. So that suffix of that da or moda, the OOD can be also wad. So when you're saying bimad, odd, the spelling is not so much as crucial as the odd, is that these suffix words these are indicators. So now I've demonstrated to you that the language has 3 different suffixes. It has the KG, interchangeable, the N, so one's present, future, the other one's past, and then the one with the D is all inclusive with everybody in there. And there's many, many more to it, many, many more parts to it than that. Okay. So, I know this is being recorded, so people will have a chance to record this by hand, but I'm going to run out of notation real fast here, because I'm going to focus on some other parts here. There's no questions yet? Okay. All right, I'm glad to see some smiling faces there. All right, so other things of interest, I'm going to clear this off now, clear these drawings. How else does the language work in such a fascinating way? So for example, and the reason is, although we use the term win at the end as a suffix to describe, we make things into a noun by using the suffix win, and it's very familiar. So for example, dopwin or dopwin. Dopwin is a table, right? But we're not looking for the noun table, okay? What is the root word of this in the original conceptual thinking? So because everything's a verb based, dopnan means to give, place of giving, place of giving, place of placement. That's really what that translates. It comes from the root word dopnan, And so anytime you use the suffix win suffix, okay, you're saying, and this is really what you're saying in the language. So you know, as learners and speakers, you are gesturing to the person, the listener, that you are in a state of being, right? So what I'm saying to you, if you're in a state of being, you're in a fixed state of being, okay? So if I'm saying that adapnan is a table, but originally it's a place where you give things, you place things, a place of placement, right? And then it becomes dap win, you are saying that this is a stationary spot where things are placed. You're not saying the wooden table. You're not saying the ledge. You're saying that this is an ongoing placement for placing things. That's how the language, linguistic relativity works. So every time you have that win suffix, right? So if you are Anishinaabe, mo win. Anishinaabe mo is the speaking part of the language, but you are actually in the state of speaking the language. Then you add the suffix win, because now you're in the state of speaking the language, because you added the win. You understand the relativity? Like, you know, it makes it that much more different to understand. So people are like, well, when you add the word win, then it becomes a noun. Yes, it does, and no, it doesn't, because in the original land teachings, it's just at that moment. It's frozen in time that you are in that state. And that's what makes it unique when you have that win suffix, right? And a lot of our language words are developed from these verb-based understandings. And then they evolve through the transition of time, right? An example of that, so we go as wabanong, right? You could, spelling is not the most important here, so it depends on your dialect. You can spell it wabanong, wapanong, right? And then you can spell it as wabinong, right? All those words mean east, okay? As you look up your dictionaries, you're gonna say, oh, that's east. I know that, I've seen that before. That's the first direction on the medicine wheel. But really the conception and the understanding is just like what we were talking about in the Anishinaabe. What really makes it east? We use it as east in English. It's gestured as east, but to the Anishinaabe of the past, they understood this worldview of nature, how nature intertwined into these word conceptions. Inside this word, wab, right? Waba or wabi is the word to see, to look. So if I wanted to say wabma, I see you, right? That's how you say it. If I wanted to say wabdun past tense, I seen something, wabdun. But the root word is wabi, which is to see. This is what are you seeing? It is all sights. The first light, just like that birth in the light, it becomes first sight. In addition, I can go down to the next level of the breakdown, but we'll get into that, okay? First, we're gonna begin with the two compounds of waban and anung, okay? Anung, as you may spell it this way, you can spell it this way, you can spell it this way. It all means star. So when you're saying the east, you're actually saying the star, right? You're saying the star that you see, but it's not just any star. There's another compound word within the compound word. Okay, so as fluent speakers, as you will all become at some point, the word wabun or wapan, depends on your dialect, right? Or your area of sound, means dawn or tomorrow's dawn. Tomorrow's dawn. And there's a reason for that. Okay, so anytime you say the word waban, you're saying the dawn. So really what you're saying in basis, when you're saying east, it's the dawn star is what you're saying. And you see it, you can visualize it. But there is more than just the visualization. There's actual symbols inside of these word sounds. These words give you symbolism that you can, as you become a fluent speaker, you will see how it factualizes into a picture. Okay, so anytime I say the word wa, just by itself, or ah, let's say, or o, or u, it is something round or circular. Okay, so round or circular. Okay, it is something bright, it is something clear, bright, light, clear. And it's always going to be like that. There's going to be like hidden things, symbols within these words that, you know, you may be just learning the words in the phrase, but understanding how the culture is derived from the land and the symbolism in each word compound makes it so much more interesting to say that, yes, our ancestors didn't just leave us words. They left us instructions with these words, right? So every time I say the word wa, it has to do something round. How do I know it's something round? Well, we can use examples. Okay, so for Ojibwe, wa one, that's an egg. Two circles together, that was easy, right? Right? Wa we that's how you say full circle in general. Wa we With the word we it means curve, circles with a curve. There's even more parts to it that you don't even know about. Wabagon, Wabagwan, very similar. Flower or gray clay. Flower or gray clay. See how it begins with the wabi? And if you look at a flower that is round, it has a circle, and it has that just like the sun. Because when they used to use the sun decor in the old regalias, they used to talk about the different planets with the sun decor, because they were very good with the stars. And you see how that wabagwan, becomes part of the integration with the word wa. Other additional words, how do I say far away sun? Wasa means far away sun. And that's why you have like Wasaga Beach, the far away light in the distance. Wasaya Airlines, you see the light in the distance? This is how you know that Wa is that eastern sunlight, that first egg, that circle that comes up, that flower of life, that clay. See how the story evolves, eh? From one word, from Wabanong, we get sight. We know it as a star. We know it as the dawn star. We know it is the cradle of life. And it's in the faraway distance. And these are how these words translate to be. This is how they become formulated. And it doesn't matter what area you are, they'll have different functionalities and different switches of similarity. And if the translation changes so dramatic, then it's probably because of something that happened in history to change that. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to delete the top part here, because we're going to move on to this next part of the story here. We've got the suffix here. And each language that we speak is not so far apart as one would think. Okay, so play a little game. So if you're Mi'kmaq, you know, there's modern Mi'kmaq or Maliseet and an ancient Mi'kmaq, because even like our language, Ojibwe and Algonquin, have old and new. We can play this little game. How do we know we're from the same Algonquin family? Because, for example, if the ah sound, like I was saying, the wa, ah, and oo, let's say ah, and then we say, instead of say wabin, we're going to say abin, right? Abin is now the word for dawn, but it's going to be abbreviated without the W sound, right? And that's going to be dawn, and that's Mi'kmaq language, right? And then naki, anything aki in our language means the earth or land. So taking the two compounds together, without even being a Mi'kmaq speaker, I can tell you from the ancient scripts, we can read between each other because we're of the same family, right? Abenaki means the dawn light over the land, right? Simple as that. And I wasn't even trained under the Mi'kmaqs. I just know, right? You see how fun that was? Because our language are interchangeable. We can go here, we can go there. The hardest thing sometimes as speakers is because we have what's called the L dialect and the S dialect. So right now you're getting a live broadcast from Waukegan, Illinois. I'm down in the States right now instead of down in Toronto, Ontario. So, you know, the language is the L dialect that presents itself. So Milwaukee, right? Here's Milwaukee. Now, L's becomes N's. This is how dialects work. So you're not familiar with it, whether it's modern day Mi'kmaq or Blackfoot. We're all part of the same family, right? I can switch between it just by switching little mechanisms. So it becomes Min O, because the Wa goes under Min O. If you follow my chart here, the Wa, Ah, and O, they're all interchangeable. So now it becomes the word Minnow, right? Minnow Ki. So Minnow plus Ki, AI. Translation equal sign, because our language is like a map, equals the good land. That's all you're saying. So what is the translation of Milwaukee? Good land. This is good land, probably for growing, for stuff like that. That's as simple as that. Milwaukee, right? Milwaukee. And that's how simple it is. We've now switched from an L dialect, from Mi'kmaq, we switched over to L dialect, which we call L dialect Cree. And it wasn't even that hard, you know. P's and B's are interchangeable, K's and G's are interchangeable, because you're pronouncing it in your throat, ga, ka, pa, ba. And you understand that these wa, ah, and o's become, you know, interchangeable throughout the land. So even when I'm down here, there's a highway called, you guys all know the song Skokie Highway, Muskokie, you know, there's a little country song with Muskokie, okay? Okay, so as a language speaker, you already know that Misko means equals the color red, right? So simple. Plus, we're going to do Ojibwe physics here, plus Ki, which we know from Abenaki. What is a Ki? It is equals the land. So the grand total translation is red land. That's what Skokie means, the red land. So you're going to find anywhere in Turtle Island, Mackinac, Minis, that our language exists everywhere. People think that we are exclusive to one area, to that area. No, we went from California to Florida to the East Coast, you know, as far West Coast and Northwest Territories. We're everywhere, you know. They call us the Creeks, the Menominee, you know, the Potawatomi, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Mi'kmaq, Blackfoot, the Shawnee. It's all the same language. The thing is, we all got what's called like labeled with a hat, you know, through history. They gave us a label, and that label caused us to believe, or we, you know, if we forgot who we were, that we were different. We were really all from the same language, right? And that language, we call it as Algonquin family, and that's ongoing, you know. Is it easy for us to transfer between one area to the next? Not exactly, because I mean, we're talking about historical evolution. So historical evolution is just like how the Métis language or Mischief language was evolved from, if you have an Ojibwe speaker and a French speaker in one household, and they have a Ojibwe speaker and a French speaker in another household, how the kids learn. One household, they may say the house for maison, the other one may have said wigwam, right? The house down the road would have called it Wakaigan or Waukegan. And then the intermixes through the 300 or 400 years will give you a new developed, which is called a dialectic translation or dialectic form. So those dialectic forms become the barriers we have today. So as language speakers and language learners, to try to find speakers that speak the same dialect overall, or is familiar with the many dialects, that's the golden key, is finding somebody that can speak them all, or is familiar with all the timestamp evolutions of those linguistic changes, those switches, right? Because for us in our area, we say mission is give me, but if you were in a different part of Minnesota, the word mission also means to give. It's an opposite, but the action is the shift. Okay, I hope that's enough to get your brain going in the most positive way. So stop the share, and then
I am curious, Brian, if you don't mind, just because
Sure.
there's been a lot of stories that have been shared with me recently, you know, around kind of animals and just creation story and you know, all these different pieces. And I know, you know, when I often think of language, I can hear the word and, you know, obviously I translate it to English though, right? But I know, you know, from what I've been taught and from my understanding, this is so weird. I'm like looking at the screen here, that, you know, so like Maigan, that's a wolf, but it's like that's it misses so much when you say wolf, right? Or if you
Right.
translate it to that. But one of the words I'm interested in, though, that because it kind of has some significance to me right now, is ondig, so crow. I was just wondering if you might be able to go through that a little bit, because I know, again, there's so much that misses in crow, and I know that there's stories around crow, but I'm really curious to know like what that word itself, ondig, means.
Bring up to our whiteboard here. Pull out our magic eraser.
I love it.
Okay. So, and there's a lot more to it than just what you see. Okay, so for example, how the construct of the words and the stories are formulated off of one thing. So, nonde is a form of how you say where. You can say it in some dialect as onde ejayan versus apish or apish ejayan. You say nonde or onde, because the root for nonde means to seek or to hunt. So if you were a hunter, you say nonde, you're a hunter, you seek, right? So the relevancy of the story of the crow is that they have the ability to see or to hunt. Oh, I see a little flash here before we go too far. I'll get into that one. Yeah, the expression for spirit in just a minute. It's fun, eh? I know. So now, but there's also different aspects to it. DIK is like, now you were talking about, there's abik, debik, right? There's different aspects of the nighttime. When you think of the crow, you always think of the stories of the night crow or the darkness, right? So debik, for example, the only difference between the two is you have the word bik. The word bik by itself, which this means night, middle of the night, midnight, let's say. You'll see the similarities, okay? So the bik by itself means a spade. So if you're playing cards with me, it's a spade. At the same time, it's a mineral. Wabik is a mineral or a mound of minerals, and that's why our metal, right? So there's dibik, which is like, it's got a heartbeat. So it's got a heartbeat of this night essence. It's like a mineral shimmer. So they're saying that something that hunts and looks for that shimmer, that shine. You see what I mean? It's looking for that spark. It's its characteristic that it's looking for shiny things. And that's what makes it unique. So I would say that the word crow means seeks, also means seeker of the shining things. Shiny things could be anything. But isn't it more fascinating to see it that through those eyes, right? The purpose behind ondik, the why. Even when we say, for example, noje, ganonge, means a pike, right? You're going fishing. Noje, ganonge. Really what you're saying is noje is something that's long and narrow. That's all that translates to. It is long and narrow. And that's the translation of noje, right? It gives you that definition of the long and narrow. And each, like fish, bird, they'll have those characteristics into those descriptive breakdowns. Now, there was a question from the audience that asked for the word Manitou, right? Ooh, this is a fun one. Okay, I'm ready. Okay. I better clear the board. You got this all on screen? Okay.
Yeah, we're good. I think we're still recording, Tammy. I want to make sure because I'm trying to look for questions here.
We are recording, yes.
Okay, so we're perfect. Awesome.
There was one question that popped up. So
yeah, here I can. So the question was, if everything has spirit, what is the expression for spirit?
Right. Exactly. Okay, so the word we use is Manitou, right? You spell it this way. You can spell it like Tou. You can spell it as Mado, Manido, Manido, like that. You can spell it with a M-A-I-D-O or D-U. Doesn't matter. Some people have like a funky way of saying it. We're writing it. Manito, Manido, Nado means spirit. But that is in general. Okay, what is a spirit? Question, answer, right? So our language gives you a description. So when you're saying, You know, because even some people will say the sweat lodge, they'll call it Mododo Swan, or they call it a Manito Sok. That's what they'll call a sweat lodge, right? They'll call it a spirit lodge, which is the spirit, or else Madodo Swan. So, but the word comes from Mama We. Mama We means together. Together or bring together. So the root of Manitou is that the ideology of the spirit has the powers and capabilities of bringing things together. That's why you say Mamawe, Mamanitu. Nado is that energy that you carry with you, that force. How do you know it brings things together? Is in these other translations, okay? So the other translations of, so Manitou, spirit. So we're going to do Ojibwe math again here. Plus Biwabik. Biwabik means, just so you know, iron. Okay. Wabik, like I just told you in the screen before this, is a mineral or metal. Biwabik is iron. Okay. So together, its translation is magnet. Okay. Because the spirit brings things together. Okay. So you look up your dictionaries, you're looking for the word magnet, Manitou, Biwabik. The spirit in an iron, because spirit brings things together. How do you know it has spirit? Because spirits, they don't separate things, they pull things together. And that's why you'll get dictionary translations of such things, just like Mamawe. Okay, so I hope that answers the audience question. I mean, you know, there's only so much time, so I want to make sure there's room for more questions. Oh, the little block is lighting up here. Oh, good. I'm glad I could answer your question for you. You know, like some people will say Jem Nado, Gitchi Manitou. Gitchi is big, the big spirit, the great spirit. Jem is still a same form of the word Gishe. You know, Jem is just another dialect of saying, some people will say the great mysteries. It is. The great spirit, we're like a bunch of little spirits in the grandness of one great big spirit, just like the togetherness. And we all binded together to make one big spirit. Because we're all unique, right? If we were all identical, it would be boring, right? We all have to be unique. Okay. So new questions? No, we got some.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, we're just trying to pull up the questions that, there's some questions that were forwarded and there's been emails galore. So I'm trying to find those right now. Tammy, I don't know, I know you said you might have found them, so just want to check in. But if not,
Yes.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I can ask one of the questions
Perfect.
here. So one of the questions is regarding like the culture, humor and laughter and all that is really huge and part of the culture. And how is that translated into words or in expressions?
Well, the language is, because it's all verb based, right? You know, like the verb base itself, it's that the humor itself is all verb based. So it becomes an expression of yourself, and the laughter comes from the healing. So they say when you laugh, you heal. And even though if you don't think you're ill in any way, you don't have to be ill. You just become healthy, right? There's that state of happiness. I'm just looking at one of the chat comments here. I'm wondering if you can break it down for me so no one knows what it means. When guy can sounds like when he gun. When guy gun. And what is that supposed to mean, Amanda? When guy gun. Is it almost like mainga? I'll let one of our participants or the. So, for example, of how words like anything with to answer the part of the question. So, let's say you didn't know how to translate a word, or you never heard a word for it before. So, if you have a suffix that ends in the word, suffix is G-U-N, G-A-N, G-O-N, G, yeah, pretty much like that. This word gun, the suffix gun, a gun, means to hold. That's what it means. Something that is, okay, the little flasher came up. Oh, that's okay. But if it was the word gun, It's still a valid question. There's no such thing as a wrong question. So that if you have any word that has the word gun at the end, so for example, let's say, first example, nipi. Nipi is water, right? Water plus gun, right? Just holds. So it means place that holds water. Simple as that. How do I know it's right? Because you say dakan or dakan to hold. To hold. So if I was standing with you, you were in a lineup with me, and I've got a can of Pepsi or Coke, and I say, here, dakan, hold this for me. That's what gan means. Da is the action, gun is actually holding. Just so you know that suffix. It helps you learn the language if you know the suffixes and what they mean. So if you have a pipe, pawa or opawa, right? Pawa gun, right? Pipe. Pawa means smoke. It means vapor, right? It means vapor. It means to blow. It also means to blow. Okay, so pawa means to blow smoke or have a vapor. So if I'm blowing something, it's pawa, right? Pawa gun, it holds the smoke, it holds the vapor, and that's pawa, okay? You know, and this is how words formulate. How do you know that? Because the B's and P's are interchangeable, right? B's and P's, so I can start off with this. Way. Spell it however you want. Make a fire. How do you make a fire? You go, you blow into it, right? And that's blowed. When you fart, you boget. You blow. You make a vapor. Is there no question to what pawa means? Clear definition. If you're blowing something from your nose and it's a small blowing, it's a bogety ass. It's a small blowing. You see how the language works? It's a compound of verbal descriptions that come together. And that's what makes it so special, is that the humor is found in these translations, right? Because it tickles you. It tickles you because who'd have thought you could make words in such compounds? But our language, there's no limits, right? People, even if they're arguing in the language, they can't really argue, right? Right? So it's never going to go the way you think it's going to go. You know, it's going to go funny, right? If you're saying, like, how does one word build to another word? Nishka, right? Nishka in the Anishinaabe means to get up, right? And if here's a gesture, and if I say zit is my feet, right? Nishka zid, right? It means angry, but it's not really the word. It's not really angry like you imagine somebody yelling. No. It means standing up high. So if you're standing up high like a bear, you're actually speaking the language of the animals. So you go up to somebody or something and you stand high. That's nishkadzit. You are saying you're angry. Without even using words, you've now body gestured the word anger to another being. Isn't that how fascinating our language is? It tells you the cues as the symbols of nature and how things become. And it's fun. It's fun too. And this is why it's so funny, because, you know, I could get into the dirtiness, but we can't do that on a live broadcast there. But it gets even funnier, you know. Just know that I'll give you a little story. Okay, so when you say, you know, you see all these people and they have, there's the hairs of the earth, right? But mish, like mishkeke is medicine, but the word for mish is the hairs of the earth, okay? So just remember that. Mish is hairs. So there's different sacrednesses and different personal levels to that word mish, okay? They also can sound dirty in some dialects. That's why I mentioned it. Because if you're thinking, it depends what's going through your upstairs, right? If you're thinking dirty, it's gonna be dirty and it's gonna be funny. Okay. I know we're up to 7:55. Is there more questions? I'm really enjoying this. This is fun.
My mind's just like, yeah, my mind's getting blown. It's unreal.
So, Brian, I have a question around building new words. So, like you have the language and it's been around for so long, and then you had different technologies come in, like the car and different things like that. So, what kind of words would be built around what's happening today, like the vaccinations and COVID and stuff like that? Or is there any, like, what are the words breakdown for those ideas?
Okay. Well, there was a question with Maka, but I'll give you the one real quick here. Since, and keeping in mind, using your worldview as a verb-based language. So, for example, modern vehicle is called a Daban, right? Everybody knows it as Daban. You can spell it this way, you can spell it that way, you can spell it as Dobbin, right? Depends where you come from. Car, truck. But really, was it ever a car or a truck, right? Remember, like I told you, this is a verb-based language, right? D's and T's are interchangeable, right? Bidabin means the rising light in the morning. It's not exactly dawn, just after dawn, okay? Just so you know, bidabin. But the root word daban, originally, before it meant car and truck, this is what it means. It means to carry, to slide. That's its real definition. So really, when you're saying to me, daban, you know, you're carrying or sliding. And this is where when first contact come in, da, which is the action. Da is an action, okay? Can be as a D or T, it doesn't really matter. It's just a dialectic sound. Tobagan is a sleigh, right? Sled. That's where it comes from, because it comes from the word toba, and instead of toba, bagan, it has the word gun at the end. So we're using the word gun suffix. The gun means to hold, right? Toba, just like gaba, you know, when they're saying it carries you and it holds you, that's really what they're saying. That's the origin of the word toboggan. Because really it's talking about the sun. They're not really actually talking about a physical thing, unless you have the word gun. But when you say daban, you're saying that life slides into the rising light. So you slide into the day. It's an actual, like almost like a poem, that life then begins, you slide into it. It's very poetic. It's very magical how you can imagine what a daban really is, right? And that's why I say, ibidaban, wasay bidaban, right? And that's how the language works. Okay, so there was another question that shot up on the thing.
Yeah, somebody was asking to break down makwa.
Okay, so makwa there. Okay, so makwa can appear as this. Under my rule book, the wa can become an o, so you can say it is mako, right? Mako, that is correct as well. So makwa, there's an origin story to it. Bear in translation. Ma means here, so we'll put that. M-A-A, here, anywhere here is Oma. Oma is here, right? And Kwa itself is now like Ko in the earth. In the earth. It's an expression, Ko and Kwa, is that you're in the earth. How do you know that's correct? Okay, because a box, a box, and a basket, right? That's how you say box or basket. Macaque is inside something, so it's dark like the earth. And under the creation story, macaque, he being the earth, is a frog. Frogs go deep into the earth and live in the land, which is ki at the back. So like the bear goes inside the den. So one's gesturing, you're going in the den. you know, off of the offshoot of makaki, which is like a box or basket or an area, whereas the frog goes deep into the earth. So your bare definition, just like saying makade wa for black, you know, you're just denoting that earth darkness, or it comes in from the darkness. Okay? Pretty clear when you see the verbs, right? You know, like there's a place down here called Makwa Nongo. There's an actual place in the States called Makwa Nongo, which means bear's den, right? But the reason we know is it's a den because the suffix anong is a star, right? Is that in the creation story, anong or anything, anong, just like ning, means I come from. So the story that we come from a shooting star says that in this case, we're not saying it's a bear star, but you're saying that where the bears come from. So we know it as a translation to be bear's den, right? But the story that we know in our creation story with the shooting star and the little piece of the star in the sky, right? You know, and this is where those stories connect from unknown. Because if I'm saying I'm coming from somewhere, I use the word suffix aking, from the land, right? Aking, right? You see what I mean? The ing, the ong. You know, if I'm going to a store, it's the way or the way. The way is to trade or buy, plus gamik. Gamik is a building, right? And I add the suffix ong, O-N-G, just like the nungus means near or to or from. That's what those suffix I mean ong. See how that works? So then that whole phrase, the way, gamik, gong, means going, gone. I'm not even saying to the store, or to the place that you buy stuff. This is the descriptive elements inside of it, right? And the ung says, if I had a prefix of nigi and niwi, I will go to the store. Niwi, doe gamangon, I will go to the store. Future tense. And this is how those language prefixes will affiliate with the ung and all that. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Any last questions? I hope I've sizzled your brains to rebuild them. You know, the language is that powerful. What's in a word? The entire secret of knowledge is in a word.
Yeah, someone says 1 hour is too short.
Right? Right?
Lindsay, absolutely. Paula,
Yeah.
she feels awoke.